Alright, listen up. In 1978, two men sat down in Baguio City, Philippines, to play chess. But this wasn't your normal, oops I hung a knight, kind of match. No, this was Cold War WWE. This was psychological warfare with pawns. This was the Soviet Union versus a man who literally defected from the Soviet Union. On one side, Anatoly Karpov, the golden boy of the USSR, handpicked, state-approved, probably had a KGB agent ironing his shirts. On the other side, Viktor Korchnoi, the Soviet defector who said, "I'm done with this country," and dipped so hard the Kremlin still hasn't forgiven him. The stakes? Not just the world title, not just bragging rights. This was political survival, national pride, and Cold War paranoia turned up to 11. And before anyone won, this match featured KGB hypnotists, mirrored aviator sunglasses, chairs sent to hospitals for x-rays, radiation sweeps, mystics in saffron robes, and an international investigation over blueberry yogurt. If you think Magnus versus Hans was dramatic, buddy, you're not ready for this. The madness started immediately. Karpov brought Dr. Vladimir Zucker, a Soviet psychiatrist and alleged hypnotist. This man sat in the front row, leaned forward, and stared at Korchnoi for hours. Not blinking, not moving, just pure, "I will steal your soul" through eye contact energy. Korchnoi said Zucker was trying to paralyze his mind, disrupt his concentration, project negative thoughts, basically cast psychic debuffs like it's Dungeons and Dragons. And honestly, I believe him. Zucker looked like the final boss of a psychology textbook. So how do you fight a Soviet hypnotist? With your own mystics? Obviously. Korchnoi hired two members of the local Ananda Marga group. These dudes showed up in bright saffron robes, sat on stage in full lotus position, and tried to beam positive cosmic vibes at Korchnoi. Imagine playing a world championship match while two monks sit behind you radiating spiritual Wi-Fi. This match wasn't chess. It was Avatar, the last airbender, but with middle-aged men and yogurt. When the mystics weren't enough, Korchnoi escalated. He showed up wearing gigantic mirrored aviator sunglasses, the kind that make you look like you're about to write someone a speeding ticket. The goal? Block Zucker's hypnotic stare. Karpov's team immediately protested. They claimed the stage lights were bouncing off Korchnoi's chrome shades and blinding Karpov. Imagine filing an official complaint that your opponent is too shiny. Referees had to step in to rule on eyewear reflection physics. This match was held in 1978, but the drama was straight out of a 2023 Twitch stream. Game 2. Karpov is handed a cup of blueberry yogurt mid-match. Korchnoi's team loses their minds. They file a formal protest claiming the yogurt was a coded message. Yes, yogurt, as in dairy. They argued. Blueberry at 3 p.m. equals play pawn to d4. Strawberry equals reject the draw offer. Banana equals call the KGB, we need backup. The officials took it so seriously they created an official yogurt delivery schedule. Imagine being a fight arbiter and having to regulate fruit flavors. This match broke people. Paranoia skyrocketed. Both teams brought radiation detectors to sweep the hall for electronic sabotage. They even disassembled the players' chairs and sent them to a hospital to be x-rayed for hidden transmitters, toxic gas capsules, Soviet spy gadgets, or maybe just bad lumbar support. Nothing was found. Just pure Cold War anxiety and two men who desperately needed therapy. The rules were simple. First to 6 wins. Draws don't count. Karpov jumped to a 5-2 lead, and everyone thought it was over. But Korchnoi, fueled by rage, mystics, and dairy-based conspiracy theories, fought back. He clawed his way to 5-5 after 31 games. 31. This match lasted longer than some marriages. How Karpov must have felt. So here, White plays pawn to c4, launching the English opening, which is primarily used to control the d5 square and the light central squares without committing to an early central pawn push. Black responds with knight to f6, a flexible, slow move that keeps options open. White plays knight to c3, and Black responds with pawn to e6. Nothing out of the ordinary so far. White plays knight to f3, and black plays pawn to d5. In this position, white has many options, but ends up picking pawn to d4. This shifts the game in a completely different direction. Instead of remaining a pure English opening, it transposes into a queen's gambit declined, which most English opening players prefer to avoid. If black is forcing you into this structure, they are likely well-versed in queen's gambit theory, which is why playing pawn to e3 earlier might be preferred, unless you're allergic to deep theory. Black plays bishop to e7, simply developing a piece and preparing to castle. You might wonder, why not play pawn to c5 or bishop to b4? Those are good moves, but look at it through black's eyes. Anatoly Karpov is a supreme positional player. He loves to squeeze his opponents slowly until they crack, basically a chess boa constrictor. White develops with bishop to f4, controlling a key diagonal, and black castles. White plays pawn to e3, and now black gets aggressive, playing pawn to c5, the classic central pawn break. White takes on c5, and black plays bishop takes c5. Right now, this bishop scope is somewhat blocked by white's pawn on e3. White plays queen to c2, aiming to place a rook on the semi-open d-file. Black develops with knight to c6. White plays rook to d1, and black responds with queen to a5, stepping out of the pin along the d-file. White plays pawn to a3. You might think white wants to push pawn to b4, but rushing that fails to knight takes b4, a pawn takes b4, and bishop takes b4, which pins the knight to the king. After rook to c8, black follows up with knight to e4, and white's position quickly collapses into a nightmare. So, the real point of pawn to a3 is defensive, stopping black's bishop from landing on the powerful b4 square. Black plays rook to e8, and white plays knight to d2, intending to reroute the knight to b3. Black strikes back with pawn to e5, attacking white's pieces. If white tries knight to b3, black plays queen to b6, and after white captures the bishop on c5, black plays takes white's bishop on f4. White wants to avoid this trade because white's dark-squared bishop is far superior to black's, and opening the e-file leaves white's king exposed to the rook. So white plays bishop to g5, and black unleashes the incredible move, knight to b4. Warning, white cannot capture this knight. Taking it allows black to retake with check, forcing white to defend with bishop to e2, after which black wins back the piece with a completely winning position. Even your pet goldfish would be concerned for white. So white plays queen to b1 to dodge the threat, and black plays bishop to f5. Black is slowly suffocating white. White plays bishop to d3, offering to trade off the light-squared bishops. Karpov made a rare misstep here. Instead of trading bishops immediately, he played pawn to e4. While it looks logical, it succumbs to bishop to f1 because you don't want to give black a chance to trade off the knight or allow white a dangerous passed pawn. White miscalculates and plays bishop to c2, trading the bishop for the knight. Black plays queen to a6, trades the bishop for the knight, and white recaptures with the queen. Why trade a bishop for a knight and lose the bishop pair? Knights are tricky because they ignore traffic laws and jump over pawns, making them deadly in closed positions. Black plays bishop to d6, and white plays rook takes d5, snatching the pawn. Black responds with rook to e5, offering a rook trade. After knight to b4 and rook to c8, the rooks are traded off, followed by knight and bishop exchanges. White effectively says, "You can take my pawn on c4. I'm just going to castle," which is exactly what happens. White then plays rook to d1, attacking the bishop. Black responds with queen to e5, defending the bishop while threatening to take the pawn on h2 with severe damage. White plays pawn to g3 to shut down the threat. The endgame slows down. Pawn to a6, queen to b3, pawn to b5, and pawn to a4. Black cannot capture on a4 because it hangs a rook. Black plays rook to b4. White responds with queen to d5, forcing a queen trade, which black accepts. Black then plays bishop to f8, followed by a pawn takes b5, pawn to a5, and rook to d5. After a long, patient positional grind, Black eventually resigns. This match was so insane FIDE had to rewrite the rulebook. No hypnotists in the front row. No mirrored sunglasses. No mystics on stage. No yogurt-based espionage. No chairs being sent to hospitals. No Cold War nonsense. Chess was never the same again. Well, I believe it's time to wrap up this video. If you want more of these type of videos, please like and subscribe. Goodbye.